St. Joseph College of Communication, one of the largest animation and media training college in Asia. ദക്ഷിണേന്ത്യയിലെ ആദ്യത്തെ മീഡിയ കോളേജായ സെയിന്റ് ജോസഫ് കോളേജ് ഓഫ് കമ്മ്യൂണിക്കേഷനിൽ മഹാത്മാഗാന്ധി യൂണിവേഴ്സിറ്റിയുടെ അഫിലിയേഷനോട് കൂടിയ BA മൾട്ടിമീഡിയ, BA ആനിമേഷൻ ആൻഡ് ഗ്രാഫിക് ഡിസൈൻ, BA വിഷ്വൽ ആർട്സ്, ഇന്റീരിയർ ഡിസൈൻ, BA വിഷ്വൽ കമ്മ്യൂണിക്കേഷൻ, BA ആനിമേഷൻ ആൻഡ് വിഷ്വൽ എഫക്ട്സ്, BA ഓഡിയോഗ്രഫി ആൻഡ് ഡിജിറ്റൽ എഡിറ്റിംഗ് തുടങ്ങിയ ഡിഗ്രി കോഴ്സുകളിലേക്കുള്ള അഡ്മിഷൻ ആരംഭിച്ചിരിക്കുന്നു. കൂടാതെ PG കോഴ്സുകളായ MA ആനിമേഷൻ, MA മൾട്ടിമീഡിയ, MA ഗ്രാഫിക് ഡിസൈൻ, MA സിനിമ ആൻഡ് ടെലിവിഷൻ, MA പ്രിന്റ് ആൻഡ് ഇലക്ട്രോണിക് ജേർണലിസം, MA സിനിമാറ്റോഗ്രഫി തുടങ്ങിയ കോഴ്സുകൾക്കുള്ള കൂടുതൽ വിവരങ്ങൾക്ക്
St. Joseph College of Communication, Media Village Hills, Changanassery, Kottayam. Call 0481 272225 or 8547372225. Visit www.sjcc.ac.in.
Well-known designer, art director, and above all, an academician in India and abroad. Prakash Moorthy has done his post-graduation in art at the MS University of Baroda and in animation film design at the NID in 1989. From 2000, he taught visual scripting and character design at the NID. He's also a filmmaker. Prakash Moorthy did production design of Rise and the Queer, a Swiss feature film directed by Marcus in Hoof in 1996 and 97. In 1999, he did the production design of Vanaprastham. We all know about Vanaprastham, I think. A feature film directed by Shaji and Karun, for which he won the award for the best art direction at Dubai Film Festival. In 2002, he did production design of Kaya Taran, a feature film directed by Shashi Kumar. As I have told you at the beginning, he is also an academician. His book is well known. His book, Animating an Indian Story, was published by the NID in 2006. And he contributed a lot to the short stories to Between the Earth and the Sky, an anthology of stories from the forest edited by Sadia Sachi for Penguin Books. He has also worked as professor and HOD of animation cinema at SRFTI, Kolkata. Besides designing the curriculum for the same, he initiated the animation film appreciation program, Sense Animation, that travels the northeastern states. And now he's serving as the academic chairman of St. Joseph College of Communication. So, Professor Prakash Moorthy, we are delighted to have you as the resource person. In the name of all participants present, I extend a warm welcome to you. Hearty welcome, Professor Prakash Moorthy.
Thank you so much, Father. And thank you for that introduction. And I see familiar faces from far away. I see Dave Burnskill from England. I see Subrata from Calcutta, etc. So it's wonderful. I think I should get on with this. It's a very strange time that we are all meeting. It's kind of... can you hear me all well?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So Dave, how are you? All well in England? Okay.
Very well, thank you. Very, very well indeed. And it's very good to be here. Thank you for giving me the lead.
So I get on with my talk, time and space, generally on the question of time and space in cinema, but I'm talking about animation, of course. And when I'm speaking of animation, you cannot deny the kind of the support that cinema gives it to it. And I must start by saying that the cinema is a medium of expression that strides both time and space to express. I mean, this is kind of till the beginning of cinema, till the beginning of the last century, architecture was considered to be the mother of all arts, because, it housed everything else. It housed the music, it housed everything, art galleries, etc. Till, of course, cinema came and, it housed architecture itself. Not by doing that, it was actually, striding both time and cinema to do this. So, it was such a remarkable change in the history of arts. Uh, I would like to share my screen with you guys, with everyone, so that I can explain things as I go by. I have made a couple of slides so that I am also reminded of what I'm talking about. So I'm just sharing my screen. Yeah. So what I was trying to say is that cinema is a medium of expression that strides both time and space. And when we talk of cinema, either animation cinema or cinema, we are actually, talking of an art form that, sits on time and space. So the only thing that I can come to in explaining what I want to speak about is the baking of bread, in which we speak of the farmer, the baker, as well as sugar, eggs, yeast, etc., that we put into the making of bread. And you know how it happens. You have wheat gathered from the farms, then it's made into dough, and then it's kneaded, and then it's baked. It's mixed with eggs and sugar and all that. And then it's baked, and then you get a loaf of bread, and then it is sliced, and then we eat it. Yeah. And every slice of this bread actually speaks about the farmer, the baker, the sugar, the egg, and everything. It's a combination of all their effort that the bread is, and the slice of bread is part of that. Now, if we were to start building the slice and hope to make the whole loaf, will we be talking of the farmer, the baker, the sugar? So what I'm trying to say is that if we start building the slice in reverse, actually we try putting in the farmer, the sense of the farmer, the sense of the baker, the kind of wheat, the kind of sugar, etc., and make this slice, and then hope to make the loaf of bread, in reverse. So this is what I'm trying to say, that it's very similar to making cinema, very similar to making films, and so familiar in the making of animation films. You're actually making frames of a certain kind and putting them all together and hoping that it will make a whole, make a whole piece of loaf of bread. If I say the loaf of bread is a certain event, and I'm making the slices first and then putting all together and hoping that the event plays out. This is what cinema is, and this is what animation is. And what you're doing is you're creating these slices and putting it together so that it plays out in time. This is the process of making bread in reverse. So this is precisely how cinema works, and the making of cinema works. In the sense, we are actually making drawings, putting them all together, and hoping that it will make a sensible story, hoping that it will tell a sensible story. Like in a live action film, you're actually photographing images which are stills, and they are put together, edited together, and it works out as a film. So this is how you can, in a way, define what cinema or animation cinema has to do with time and space, because it is sitting both in space, because you're constructing a space, you're putting them all together and hoping that it will make sense in a certain amount of time. So the idea that I'm trying to explain here is that, unlike any other art form, plastic art form, in the sense like drawing or painting, what cinema takes you forward is that it creates something in time, but it sits in space. If, it is kind of difficult, but we all see films and we understand it. We all make animation and we understand it. But the general understanding about that, the piece of art that is animation is sitting both in space and time is a bit a kind of it was a bit of a revelation to me. I mean, when I was doing my studies in animation, uh, to kind of explain this whole thing, I must also explain that I used to work as a film art director. Principal father was talking about this. I was also working in a production, a film production, and of course this film called Vanaprastham, which everybody knows, and it's a very important film in Indian cinema. It was awarded many places at many places, and it had one of the best cinematographers working. One of the masters from Europe. His name is Renato Bretta. He normally his name is known as Alain René's cameraman. So he's of that kind, Alain René, Fassbinder, that kind of people. And he's very well respected. And he also has a nickname, which is Mr. Millimeter, because he's so precise, he's that kind of a guy. So I had the opportunity to work with him in this film. And there is some kind of a message that the working with him gave me, which is, there was a scene in this film which had to do with a very, very emotive and very sad and very touching kind of scene. And I was, of course, preparing the set for that. And I had read the script thoroughly, discussed with the director, discussed with the lighting people, and with the cameraman also, the Renato Bretta. And then I went ahead and started preparing the set. And, I knew that it was a very, very sad kind of situation that is going to play out there in the set. So I really made the room look sad and depressing. So there is a method of European kind of filmmaking in which the day before the actual shoot happens, the cameraman and the lighting guys come and light up the set, to check it out, with a camera, they kind of see how it looks in the frame. So it is called the pre-light exercise. And they came, the cameraman and the lighting people, they lit up rudimentary lights and, kind of placed the camera. It was, of course, a Panasonic camera, very, very, very huge and very, 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 what shall I say? It's a very complicated machine. Anyway, they kept it there. And Renato Berta said that, there is a bit of too much in the set. So I asked him, what is it? So he said, there is too much sadness. And I said, is it in the color? So he said, no. So I asked him, is it in the texture? He said, no, it is in the sadness. You should remove the sadness. So I asked him, is it the properties that I've kept there, the way it is looking, or maybe the material that I've used? He said, no, it is not that. I'm asking you to remove 20% of the sadness from the set. So again, I asked him, is it the color? Is it in the color or the texture of this thing? So he said, no, no, no. I'm talking about sadness and remove 20% of it. So the next day was the shoot and I didn't know what to do, but, our directors move around with a lot of equipment and stuff, dirt and cow dung and, soap and whatnot. And we used, all of us, the team of us, not knowing what we are doing, we did something. And in the middle of the night, Renato came to look at it and he said that we are reaching there. So we knew what we were doing and we completed it. In the morning, when he came for the final setup, he said it's perfect. So then looking back, I understood I had removed somehow from the sum total of all of that, in the sense the set, the textiles that I use, the architecture that I kind of altered, the photographs that I hung, the medical medicines that I kept there, all the articles, the properties. I'd done something. I mean, and then I realized that, you know, this is what it is. The cinema is like this. It is, you know, you are not on this alone, and you are not in this for just a snapshot. So it is something that beyond all that. And later Renato said that, you know, if you put 100% of sadness in that set, what will the actors do? What will sound do? What will music do? What is this going to be? It might as well be a still. You know, this is what he said. So he was saying that it's not just space alone that you're dealing with. It's also how this is going to play out with the rest of the components of the frame. You know, it has the actors. Incidentally, it was Mohanlal and Kirpadam Kumar Nashan, one of these masters of Kathakali. So it had these two people in it, and it was a supreme kind of situation, charged with great emotions. People who have seen the film will understand it. So what he was driving at is that, you know, it is a emotion in movement. It is not just one image. It is Mohanlal is going to move across the frame. This old man is going to get up from the bed. You know, there is a hell of a lot of movement here. And these are forms that move across time and space. You have to deal with that. It is not one image that you're making. So it is a great learning, you know, and it is, you know, it is in these kind of experiences that you understand that, you know, what cinema is and why it is so important as a medium, and why animation, where some of these are not available for us. For a live action film like Vanaprastham, you had the best actors. You know, you have Mohanlal at his prime. You have Kirpadam Kumar Nashan, one of the best Kathakali actors. I mean, even his, you know, slight finger moving, you know, emotes. You have all this in live action. You have all this in cinema. You all have, I mean, you have all this in any kind of cinema. You have people moving in. You have, you know, properties being brought in. You have all kinds of things. But in animation, you have to make them. You have to make every one of them. You have to design the character. You know, the character has to perform in a certain way. And all this happens in space and in time. It's not in isolation. It's not just one image. You know, it's also not what we think animation is. In the sense, we know for certain that it's not the drawings that you draw that move. It's not the drawings that you draw that moves. It is what is in between those two drawings that you have not done. What sits between two drawings that you have done, but the in-between you have not done, that is what moves. You know, or that is what helps the image to move. So it is a very, very reality that stands away from the reality that we know of, we live in. So to talk of animation and to talk of space and time, space you can understand because it's eventually a drawing. But when you say that this drawing is going to move, it is going to move in time. So you are actually thinking of an art form which moves in space and in time. It's almost like us. It's almost like us. We move in time. We speak in time. For the strangest of reasons, time, according to most of us, moves in one direction. It is onward. It goes forward. It's difficult to conceive time going backwards, frame by frame, but you can always jump back in cinema. You can go do a flashback, but life goes onward. It goes forward. You can't just suddenly, think that you want to be a child and you can't do that. So what I'm trying to say is that, striding time and space is a difficult and tough proposition for both cinema and animation. So I was trying to get back at this slice of bread, how we make drawing by drawing and hoping that it will work out as an event. Yeah, it's almost like this. The time, a form transits space and time. I hope you can see this.
Yes, sir, we can see that.
Yeah. So like this, there is this painting that I've given here. It is a nude descending the stairs. It's a very important work of art, and it's by Marcel Duchamp. And this also was done during the period in which, the artists were getting concerned with space and the movement of forms across it. This coincided with the beginning of cinema, but this being a very important point in art history, that a person like Marcel Duchamp, Picasso, and all these other cubists and modern artists of those times were really concerned about how form, transits through space and time. Because earlier the paintings were, it was almost like a photograph. It was a beautiful painting, and it was good for the eye. Everything was for the eye. In fact, Marcel Duchamp even announced that, the time for retinal art was over. This is in the 1920s. He said the period of retinal art. Retinal art is art made for the eye, for the beauty. It is over, and now art is in the service of the mind. It's not just something that you can look at and be happy, it's so beautiful, and etc. But it's also something that will make you think. So this kind of was a parallel thing that was happening both in art as well as cinema, where the camera exposed things in movement across the space. Probably everybody all of you must have heard about the railway station and the camera in front of it, the train coming in. It was an object that moved in space. And by doing that, it gave a certain other kind of feeling, which the people of those days were not accustomed to. So now we come back. I mean, this is my train of thoughts. So if later, if you think that there is something that we need more explanation, please ask me. Yeah. So this is all about framing time and space. Yeah. It is about framing. It is about, cinema is about framing. Photography is about framing. Painting is about framing. It's all to do with framing. So what is this frame? How do you explain this frame? What is there to explain in this frame? So we should look at history and prehistory of the world. history is generally considered of the period after writing was invented. Yeah, after writing was invented, it's history, and before writing was not there, it is prehistory. So prehistory is a large expanse of time, and history is how much we know, about cuneiform tablets and, the Egyptians. And, unfortunately, we don't know what we spoke because nobody knows about Harappans, though lately there are talk of, with great certainty, we know that there's some form of Dravidian languages, which people spoke in Sindh and Punjab and Rajasthan and Afghanistan and all those places, because somebody has just, lately dug up something in very close to Madurai, which kind of reflects the Harappan relics. Anyway, so this is what I'm trying to say, that there is history and prehistory. Prehistory is before the languages, the coming of the languages, and history is when after the writing, after the languages have developed. So after languages have developed, what developed along with it is obviously grammar. So most people think that the whole idea of framing came from grammar. You have to frame a sentence, you have to frame a particular event, you need to frame it. Even verbally, you need to frame it. So drawing a frame across an image that you made actually delinks it from the present and tells you that this is something that happened before. And this is something that is happening now. So this demarcation is of great importance to us because that is what we use in the camera. Obviously, it is a mechanical gadget. And the language frames a sense by drawing 4 lines across it. The best way to find the difference is 30,000 years ago, the artists, painters, just like us, painted without frames. They would just paint across the walls of the caves. This image is from, of course, from Chauvet. It is somewhere between France and Germany. And it's done 35,000 years ago, but human being, by one of us, by Homo sapien, and he drew, but he didn't have language. Therefore, he didn't have any, need to frame it because he lived in eternal present tense because he didn't, there was no need for him to delink himself from a memory or what is going to happen today or what is going to happen tomorrow. Nothing. Everything was one fabulous present tense. There was no need for anything. This was another completely different kind of world. Interestingly, there are people who still live in the present tense. There are indigenous people across the Pacific Islands, somewhere near Indonesia. They have developed languages, but they don't have any grammar. They have grammar. They only have a present tense. They see day, night, and everything as one single unit. So, it's completely different, and it's very tough to explain the emotions of that language. In a situation like 21st century, we will not gather it. Anyway, so this is what I was talking about. Frame used to frame time and space. So you say that this is what happened. This is a frame within which, we know that, this is a cinema, this is a movie, this is Netflix, and I'm watching whatever. The rest of the house is present tense. What is happening inside the frame is, obviously it is present tense of a particular film. So it is this kind of a complicated understanding, but we take to it very, very very easily. Even a child who is given an opportunity to watch films, they will get into it. I used to work for Sesame Street, and I had made films for, really small children and preschool children. And I realized that, their attention span is, of course, crazy, but, they understand. Obviously, they can't tell us because they don't have our language. And by the time they start speaking our language, they have already forgotten their earlier life. It's a very strange irony that our childhood has. We are until the 5, 6, 7, 8 months of our life, a major event is happening inside our cranium. A lot of neuron activity is happening. It's all finding places, but we don't know what it is. We don't have the memory, and while we were at it, we didn't have the language to explain. So it's a complicated thing. So anyway, so this is how we have to see, what time and space is. I mean, it's you don't have to see all this. You can actually sit and draw, and you can make your film, or you take the camera and shoot and make a film. This is of academic interest that drives me to tell this, that it is not as simple as we experience it as. It's deep. We must also understand it's only us who drew. I've said this before, I'm sure, in the college, but it is strangely true that it is only Homo sapiens who actually drew. Even 20,000 years ago, there were other humanoids along with us, like Neanderthal, then Snovonians, and a score of other people, much like us, but not us. They look like us, maybe a little different, but otherwise 2 legs and all that. But they never drew. We know that they handled tools, they had arms and all that kind of stuff, implements and all that, but they never drew. We drew. We are drawing still. So what is the difference? Everything else, we look the same, DNA or with little difference, the material is the same, skin, bone, blood, everything is the same, almost the same, of course. But one thing is, of course, very subtle difference in the head, the shape of the head. And also a very basic understanding lately that much of the other animals don't experience pain during childbirth. I mean, nobody kind of can gather what it means, but, maybe it is the reason why we draw. There's too much pain, and much of art, if you look at, has something to do with pain, something, of loss. Even the most joyous of work of art, you'll see some, So that is a kind of topic we might want to discuss later on our thing. Okay, so next we go to forms that change shape. I mean, I'm only talking about animation films here, in the sense that forms do change shape when they're moving across time and space. If we move with the pendulum, this little drawing that is down there is a ball that swings across the room. I mean, it could be a pendulum or whatever, but I call it the pendulum. If we move the pendulum, if we move with the pendulum, it is the background that will distort. It's like saying what Albert Einstein said, that from inside the train, the landscape outside distorts. But from outside, it is the train that must distort. It is not really distorting, but it seems as though it is stretching. The landscape looks as if it is bending to the other side of the direction in which the train is moving. So these are experiences that all of us have. It is not actually doing, perhaps it is at atomic level or something it is doing, but we don't know. But it seems so. But since we are in the business of animation, we must show it, because otherwise there is a question of believability. We can go to town with it, but we can also be very democratic and kind of controlled. But that is, people who do animation will understand this. There are all kinds of animation that we see. Some of it I will show you just now. There are different kinds of styles, and we can go into endless debates about what is good, etc. And
stand back, musketeers! They shall
this is
sample
one.
my blade. Touche! Musketeers, my guard, my blade. Whoever's in charge here. The scenery. Where's the scenery? Stand back, musketeers! They shall sample my blade. Okay, have it your way. Daffy Duck, he had a farm, E-I-A-I-O. And on this farm he had an igloo, E-I-E-I-O. Would it be too much to ask if we could make up our minds? Dashing through the snow, through the field we go, laughing all the way. Farewell to thee, farewell to thee. The wind will carry back our fairy friend. One last embrace before we say, Buster, it may come as a complete surprise to you to find that this is an animated cartoon. And that in animated cartoons they have scenery. And in all the years I've... All right, wise guy, where am I? And I've never been so humiliated in all my life. Look, Mac, just what's going on around here? Let's get organized. How about some scenery? That's dandy. Ho, ho, that's rich, I'll say. Now how about some colors, stupid? Hey! Not me, you slop artist! Well, where's the rest of me? It isn't as though I haven't lived up to my contract, goodness knows. And goodness knows it isn't as though I haven't kept myself trim, goodness knows. I've done that. That's strange. All of a sudden, I don't quite feel like myself. Oh, I feel all right, and yet hey, you know better than that. Well? Sea Catcher, hey? I always wanted to do a sea epic. Now, Mr. Rembrandt, if you'll kindly oblige with a little appropriate scenery over the sea, let's go, Ben. We're shoving right off, Again. Come here, give me a close-up. This is a close-up? A close-up, you jerk!
So this goes on like this. It's a interesting film that explains itself. So I just wanted to show that every story must sit in a space, and and every narrative must tell itself out in time. I mean, I'll show you just basic portions of this.
Who is it? Yeah, but just a minute. I'm a coming. Hello. so what is this? Hey, hey, watch it. Who is it? No, stop with that. Hey, no. No. Hey, no. Oh, oh. Hey, who is it? Yeah, just a minute. I'm coming. Hello. Hello. Yes, so what is this? Hey. Hey, watch it. Who is it? No, stop with that. Hey, no. No. Hey, no.
So this also has a linear time, and the story, the narrative must tell itself out in time. This is again to explain what I'm trying to say. It is now, everybody knows that time and space are one and the same. And if space-time can be curved, we could land up when and where we started from. I mean, this is completely, postulations. Now, nobody has figured out what this means. But kind of, we're beginning to understand that, time and space are kind of one. It is like you can run a film backwards. It can run a film forwards, but you can also run it backwards. Yeah, I mean, actual 35 mm, we could jog it. We used to call it jogging. We could go a couple of frames forward, we can go backwards, and we see this. And editing software does it now. So in that sense, you can actually go forward and you can also go backwards. Maybe we are not in a state to understand this. We have, we have questions about going back and doing something to our grandfather and what will happen to us. All kinds of stuff is there. But essentially, because of one other important experience that we have, which we call gravity, which is, I mean, I did not speak of it, but you understand this from the films that I've shown. There is a very strong, solid presence of something called gravity. Otherwise, we would be flying around. So because of gravity and because of understanding gravity, we also know that space and time can bend because of gravity. It can. I mean, at least theoretically it can. So therefore we leave it there. And if you are interested, we can, you could read this up. I only just have to say this by showing this film. It was done in the 70s or 80s, I guess. It is written and, ideated by Charles Ray Eames, the person who wrote the India report, based on which the National Institute of Design has been constituted, and all the design education has been structured and kind of, made proper. So this film kind of tells you what the scale of space is, and you realize that it's just the same as time. The distance between my house and the school where I go to teach is 7 kilometers. And I take about 5 minutes by bike. But the moon is so many kilometers away, or Mars for that case. But I take 8 years to reach there. So it is easier for us to say that if I have to go to Mars or Jupiter or whatever, I need to travel 12 years. I don't need to, write so many zeros after whatever numbers of kilometers that it is. So we call it light years. It is actually the time it takes for light to reach from the sun to Earth. It is some 8 minutes or something. So the distance light is, can travel in a year is called a light year. So these kind of things. So slowly the distinction of space itself merges into description of time. So this film. I'm sure many of you have seen this. It kind of explains this. Sorry, the sound is a bit odd.
Near the lakeside in Chicago was the start of a lazy afternoon, early one October. We begin with a scene 1 meter wide, which we view from just 1 meter away. Now, every 10 seconds, we will look from 10 times farther away, and our field of view will be 10 times wider. This square is 10 meters wide, and in 10 seconds, the next square will be 10 times as wide. Our picture will center on the picnickers, even after they've been lost to sight. 100 meters wide, the distance a man can run in 10 seconds. Cars crowd the highway. Powerboats lie at their docks. The colorful bleachers are Soldiers Field. This square is 1 kilometer wide, 1,000 meters. The distance a racing car can travel in 10 seconds. We see the great city on the lake shore. 10 to the 4th meters, 10 kilometers. The distance a supersonic airplane can travel in 10 seconds. We see first the rounded end of Lake Michigan, then the whole Great Lake, 10 to the 5th meters. The distance an orbiting satellite covers in 10 seconds. Long parades of clouds, the day's weather in the Middle West. 10 to the 6th, a 1 with 6 zeros, 1 million meters. Soon the Earth will show as a solid sphere. We are able to see the whole Earth now, just over a minute along the journey. The Earth diminishes into the distance, but those background stars are so much farther away that they do not yet appear to move. A line extends at the true speed of light. In 1 second, it half crosses the tilted orbit of the moon. Now we mark a small part of the path in which the Earth moves about the sun. Now the orbital paths of the neighbor planets, Venus and Mars, then Mercury. Entering our field of view is the glowing center of our solar system, the sun, followed by the massive outer planets, swinging wide in their big orbits. That on orbit belongs to Pluto. A fringe of a myriad comets too faint to see completes the solar system. Ten to the 14th. As the solar system shrinks to one bright point in the distance, our sun is plainly now only one among the stars. Looking back from here, we note 4 southern constellations, still much as they appear from the far side of the Earth. This square is 10 to the 16th meters, 1 light year, not yet out to the next star. Our That last 10-second step took us 10 light years further. The next will be 100. Our perspective changes so much in each step now that even the background stars will appear to converge. At last, we pass the bright star Arcturus and some stars of the Dipper. Normal but quite unfamiliar stars and clouds of gas surround us as we traverse the Milky Way galaxy. Giant steps carry us into the outskirts of the galaxy. And as we pull away, we begin to see the great flat spiral facing us. The time and path we chose to leave Chicago has brought us out of the galaxy along a course nearly perpendicular to its disk. The two little satellite galaxies of our own are the clouds of Magellan. 10 to the 22nd power, 1 million light years. Groups of galaxies bring a new level of structure to the scene. Glowing points are no longer single stars, but whole galaxies of stars seen as one. We pass the big Virgo cluster of galaxies among many others, 100 million light years out. As we approach the limit of our vision, we pause to start back home. This lonely scene, the galaxies like dust, is what most of space looks like. This emptiness is normal. The richness of our own neighborhood is the exception. The trip back to the picnic on the lakefront will be a sped-up version, reducing the distance to the Earth's surface by 1 power of 10 every 2 seconds. In each 2 seconds, we'll appear to cover 90% of the remaining distance back to Earth. Notice the alternation between great activity and relative inactivity. A rhythm that will continue all the way into our next goal, a proton in the nucleus of a carbon atom beneath the skin on the hand of the sleeping man at the picnic. Ten to the 9th meters, 10 to the 8th, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We are back at our starting point. We slow up at 1 meter, 10 to the 0 power. Now we reduce the distance to our final destination by 90% every 10 seconds, each step much smaller than the one before. At 10 to the minus 2, 1/100th of a meter, 1 centimeter, we approach the surface of the hand. In a few seconds, we'll be entering the skin, crossing layer after layer from the outermost dead cells into a tiny blood vessel within. Skin layers vanish in turn. An outer layer of cells, felty collagen. A capillary containing red blood cells and a roughly lymphocyte. We enter the white cell. Among its vital organelles, the porous wall of the cell nucleus appears. The nucleus within holds the heredity of the man in the coiled coils of DNA. As we close in, we come to the double helix itself, a molecule like a long twisted ladder whose rungs of paired bases spell out twice, in an alphabet of 4 letters, the words of the powerful genetic message. At the atomic scale, the interplay of form and motion becomes more visible. We focus on one commonplace group of 3 hydrogen atoms bonded by electrical forces to a carbon atom. 4 electrons make up the outer shell of the carbon itself. They appear in quantum motion as a swarm of shimmering points. At 10 to the minus 10 meters, 1 angstrom, we find ourselves right among those outer electrons. Now we come upon the 2 inner electrons held in a tighter swarm. As we draw toward the atom's attracting center, we enter upon the vast inner space. At last, the carbon nucleus, so massive and so small. This carbon nucleus is made up of 6 protons and 6 neutrons. We are in the domain of universal modules. There are protons and neutrons in every nucleus, electrons in every atom, atoms bonded into every molecule out to the farthest galaxy. as a single proton fills our seed, we reach the edge of present understanding. Are these some quarks in intense interaction? Our journey has taken us through 40 powers of 10. If now the field is 1 unit, then when we saw many clusters of galaxies together, it was 10 to the 40th, or 1 and 40 zeros.
So this is one of the attempts that, kind of explains what space means to time and how time becomes an unit, to understand the vastness of space. And therefore, it can be but one and the same. So it's very, very strange and complicated, but we must give it a thought, because we are in the business of cinema and animation, and we should be doing this. So with this, I think we should come to another area of thought, which is line and form. What form? We just had spoken about form that transits between, through a space, which is all life about. We are in transit. The space is around us, and we move across the space. Let's say I'm walking across my room. The room is the space, and I move across time. So that is what cinema is about. But when you come to animation, you might want to figure out, you might want to think what moving across, what moving across time can do to the form. So, I'm now talking about the drawing style, the design of the form, the character design, everything the gamut of things, casting, acting, performance, actors, furniture, set, everything, the style. So how do you say that this is how it is? It cannot be, because how I see form transiting through time is my own way of looking at it. It's my sight, it's my vision, it's my style of looking at things. So I might see a form that transits in a different manner than you do. I mean, it's simple. It's a very ordinary, normal thing, in the sense that I meet a person, you meet the same person. The reading I have of that person will be different from the reading that you have of that person. The whole world is built up like this. We are individualistic to the very, very last unit of being. We can have great fights. We'll have political alignments, etc., etc. But what I'm trying to say is that the way we see the world is unique. There might be alignments, there might be fights regarding that, but we see our world in a particular way, and it is valid. And it is valid. So the line and form will change. The Daffy Duck cartoon that we saw had a certain kind of line describing the form. The Daffy Duck is a duck, but the way it is drawn employs a certain kind of line to describe it. And the line, the man who is killing that egg, the line that describes the man who is killing that egg is obviously different. So that is how things are. It's, the expression of things. No two artists are going to draw alike. the difference is what matters. You know, it's a incredible story that we have of our own history. If you look at, you know, the past art history, the history that we know of, 35,000 years ago, this guy is in Chauvet, which is between France and Germany, drew, you know, animals that they saw among themselves in such intricate detail that such kind of study appears later only during the Renaissance, almost. You know, this is a 30,000 years. I mean, it's huge. I mean, maybe there are other examples that we have not dug up yet, but from what we understand, what art historians tell us, what scientists, anthropologists, and ethnographers tell us, this is what the scene is. Anyway, line form is incredibly complicated. Like how I explained this, you know, the Tex-Avery, Tom and Jerry kind of cartoons that we see, and the personal, the more you know, closer, emotive kind of drawing styles that people use in telling stories, like the killing of the egg that we saw, Paul Redson. I mean, this is how animation is, and you can say that every one of that is valid because essentially it is a piece of art. Maybe the cartoon sells more because it is more palatable to people. Maybe the egg film is thought-provoking and nobody, I mean, not many people want to be provoked to think. But there are, I mean, lots and lots of people who want to think. I mean, the whole thing of literature, art, and everything is to make societies think. So it is not to say that that is not valid or this is not valid, this is more valid, that is less commercial. That kind of argument doesn't rise. Now, if we go into this history of animation itself, you'll see that, you know, the kind of animation that the French, I mean, the guys who actually kind of invented this persistence of vision, Raymond, you know, Pierre Raymond, I hope that is the name. I completely forgot. Anyway, it was the stuff that he made, and then later Winsor McCay made, and then Disney came in. Meanwhile, in Europe, in Eastern Europe, in Soviet Union, and, you know, then Soviet Union, there was another kind of animation going on. The Zagreb. I mean, those of you who are interested in these things, please read up, please watch these films. They are incredible storehouse of, you know, understanding what animation, what, you know, hand-drawn cinema is all about. So one of the examples that I would like to show you is of a fantastic Japanese filmmaker who is no longer there with us. His name, he died very young. His name is Satoshi Kon. And this is his, oh, I'm sorry, this line in form, I'm really sorry. This we are coming to somebody called Norman Mclaren. And this film is about what it is to form lines, which in turn makes forms. You know, it is Norman Mclaren, and he is important because he is the guy who coined this sentence, which is remarkable, which says that animation is an art form, but it is trapped by the rules of cinema. So this is him. I must tell you one other thing, that this is scratched onto film, sound film, which is black film. This is film time, you know, in the 60s, scratched directly onto the film, which already has a soundtrack. So he could hear the soundtrack, and frame by frame, he scratched on film. So this is a very, very solid example of hardcore handmade cinema. Well, it's one of the most important films in the, handmade film experimental stuff that happened in Canada. And this is Norman Mclaren's work. And those of you who are interested, I mean, it's just as part of my argument that I've kept these films together. You can, you must, if you're interested, go and see this work. But I want to focus on the randomness of these images that you just saw. They're just squishes and squashes that has been drawn on, scratched on film, but in movement, in time, it seems to make sense. It seems to have, some kind of conflict being illustrated, So this is there is no reference for anything. We don't know what it is. Of course, there is music, and music kind of gives a certain kind of mood to the whole thing. But the whole attempt to create some kind of narrative in time using just forms, just scratches that describe some kind of form is actually working. It actually takes you into a different world. I mean, you don't recognize any of these things that is moving about, just squiggles and stuff. But yet the power of narrative that sits in space and spans across time is so enticing. It's so intriguing. It's so engaging that we will construct stories out of that. So again, I would like to show you a little bit. We don't have much time. I just want to show you a little bit of Satoshi Kon's film, who I spoke a little ago about this styles that people took up, as against the killing of an egg or the Bugs Bunny, the Daffy Duck episode that you saw, which stands for a hell of a lot of animation thing across the world. We should also see this Satoshi Kon's kind of very realistic, very almost like cinema, yet it is animated. But, staying within the realm of realism, he takes you across these fantastic, much like Miyazaki or Takahata. Miyazaki, everybody knows. But this, take a look at this. Oh. We will not see the whole thing. It's a long film. Look at the kind of animation. And so, of course, it's in Spanish or something. We don't have to actually listen to what they are saying.
Señoritas, no te mataré. Tienes poco tiempo como Renis. Primero quítate el albingo. Venga, quítatelo. Venga, vamos. Ayúdame. ¿No? Sí,
It's animated, of course, but it stays in the realm of live action, of real stuff. but because it is animated, he also uses a very strange, very, very important quality that humans have, to an extent that it's so subtle that you don't realize what is happening. Everything else looks very, very real, except for the distortions of the face, sometimes the superhuman kind of abilities that all these characters have. It is very subtly done, so that one of the most important phenomena that makes us watch films and enjoy films, which is, of course, everybody knows, suspension of disbelief, for which animation has a lot more of it than live action stuff, works. He uses it very, very subtly, so that it kind of seeps through the genre that is a thriller in the real life live action scene. So from there we go to the next one. This is, again, I'm jumping a little bit, but this is, I'm trying to reach somewhere. So, of course, everybody knows about Peter Brooks, this great dramatist and, theater person. He said something in his book on theater. He said, a man going to market to buy his provisions is life. A man going to the market to buy his provision is life. But a man going to market to buy provisions and is being watched by another man or another person is theater. It's very interesting. It's like a person going to wherever he's going to the school or something, and another person or another set of people or a whole audience is watching him going to the school. Then it becomes theater. So it's a very, 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 very important and startling thing to say. Of course, a theater and cinema is built upon these lines. So even in scenarios that we just saw in Power of 10, there is an area where he says that this is how much we know. This is how strange it is that the outside and the inside more or less looks the same. He stops there. But since then, there is a lot of, all these things have come up, the Hadron Collider in Switzerland and all these kind of subatomic stuff has come up. And we now know that, in the scenarios of, subatomic physics, if you need to see something within an atom, you need to look very sharply into it, which means you have to capture. I mean, nobody has been able to capture it anyway, but this is all theoretical stuff. So you have to capture this thing and look deeply into it, because there is so much space inside it. We saw how much space inside an atom is. There's so much space inside it. There is so much darkness. You need light. So you shoot a photon, which is a light particle inside it. But the very presence of the light particle, it's so small that it can change the composition of the atom. So the very act of looking at things change the way that those things are seen. It is complicated, but this is how in simple terms it can be explained. So coming back to time and space, we must understand that the minute we make the slice first, instead of making the loaf, the minute we start making slices first, we are entering the world of cinema, the world of theater, the world of performance, the world of construction. You are constructing realism. You are breaking down what realism is into smaller units, studying it and reconstructing it. Like a filmmaker does. He knows what realism is, so he has to construct it. So how does he construct it? In a live action film, how does he do it? It's simple. All he has to do is study light, and you know that, what life is all about. In film schools and design schools and communication studies schools, students are sent on actuality studies, an exercise called Actuality Studies, where they go and learn what actualities are. Actualities is what happens every day, everywhere. Like a dog barking in a market, it's actuality. So when you reconstruct a market, you better get a dog and make it bark, so it is more real. So realism is a compilation of actualities. So once you understand how to reproduce or reconstruct actualities, you can make realism. Yeah, so the minute you start making a bread, slice of bread, it means that you already know how bread is made. You know what taste comes. Does it a little bit of salt, a little bit of sweet, a little bit of smell of the wheat, all that, that's how you can make the loaf, the slice to begin with. Exactly how you make a film. You know how a set is going to look. You know how people live in a house. So you make a set according to that. You hang a curtain, you hang a calendar, you put a table there, table next to a window. That's where tables are normally. So you know how actualities work. So that's how it is made. But it all points to the thing that it is because you're going to watch this. It is because you're going to look at the set that you're making it in such a way. If nobody is going to watch it, how the hell does it matter? But if you're going to look at it, it changes. You make it according to conventions or your learnings. You refer to the script. That's how it is done, and how people normally do it that way without understanding all this that I'm telling you, or getting into things which construct realism that we understand as real. Alvin, I'll take just 10 more minutes.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. So, just before I will conclude this, there is something called dream time and animation, which is also a very interesting topic. Dream time is, of course, when you dream, and animation is, of course, animation. Dream time, I would like to explain. Again, this works in suspension of disbelief. All of us have seen dreams. We don't have frames in them. We don't see a 35 mm dream. We don't see a 70 mm dream. We see dreams. We don't have any question of frames in it. We don't have anything. We don't have a structured, realistic scene construction. You see your grandfather and you see your grandniece sitting and having samosas. They never met. Grandfather passed away before this kid was born. So, but they are sitting there and having, and you're dreaming it, and it's okay. So this is suspension of disbelief working in a larger sense. And animation also works like that, because if a dog starts talking in an animation film, it's all right. But if a dog talks to you when you're going home, it's a problem. So, this kind of a divisions, the difference, animation is closer to dream. Because all that I said about, animation striding both time and space also allows it to distort it, just like dreams. But we are trapped, of course, like, Norman Mclaren says, it's an art form, but it's trapped by the rules of cinema. So you have to have a frame, you have to edit. But there is some things that are, questioning the whole thing. this I have already spoken. Learning cinema is actually learning life. I'll just add one more thing. It's a saying in film industry that, once you work in a film or once somebody teaches you cinema, from that day onwards, cinema teaches you life. So, that's how people talk about cinema, and, young people who get into cinema are taught. Again, like I was talking about dreams, without frames, without living in either time or space, our dreams teaching us something else. These are questions that, even animators wonder, after they make their films, you wonder, that this is how it works, but, does it actually exist? No. Is it a piece of art you can carry home? No. Of course, you can carry the hard disk if you want, but the sense of the film itself, is it something that is, it is like against a feature film where you can have references, you can say that, it's similar to this road or that road. But when you're doing an animation, it's completely constructed. Yet it is believable. And then comes virtual reality. It is completely in its infancy. It, again, doesn't have any frame. You look wherever you want to and you will see whatever it is placed there. It is so much so that even the camera is yours, of the person who is looking at it. There is so much, like what, subatomic stuff is. What you look at, how you look at changes the composition. So I'm not a great, defender of virtual reality, but what I'm trying to say is that, the progress that animation is making, the kind of, interventions into all kinds of application animation is making, makes us think, does it straddle something else? Is it just space and time? Does it also get into something else? Is it also getting into something else? So these are the questions that I had in my mind. And I think it is almost time, 3 minutes left. I'm really, really sorry, Alvin. I tried my best.
It's okay, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Is there some question answer kind of time?
Yes, sir. We'll give 10 minutes for the question answer session. So, dear participants, if you have any questions, you can either post it in the chat box or you can unmute your mic and ask the resource person. So, dear participants, please feel free to ask questions. So thank you, Prakash sir, for your wonderful session. I was really amazed the way in which you took Einstein's theories of relativity and all those things and connected it to all this animation design and all those things. I think we are getting a question in the chat box. Yes, now we have a participant who says it was a wonderful and very informative and inspiring session. Okay.
Thanks, Padri. Thank you so much.
Padri, yes. So we had about 180 participants from different parts of the world. Indeed, we had from participation from almost all the states of India, and so many from Kerala itself. So if you do not, yes.
If there is any questions or something that people want to say, please go ahead. We have time, I guess, another 10 minutes, I hope.
Okay, dear participants, please fill in this feedback form available in the chat box. Please fill in the feedback form available in the chat box. And if you have any question, please feel free to ask. Either you can unmute your mic or you can put it in the chat box. So, Aditya Ashok-Kumar.
Yeah, they're available online. Yes, they're available. Gabriel Jose, what do you think about sci-fi movies in Bollywood?
Science fiction movies in Bollywood.
Yeah, actually, it's a great thing, but I don't like them actually. So I like some of them, of course, earlier films, but the visual effects and special effects seems to have taken over, and kind of again the process of this suspension of disbelief and the control over it and the questions that it might raise should be addressed before I think before films are made. Some of them are very, very interesting, but some of them fall flat because maybe it gets a great run in the box office, but people tend to forget them quickly. Whereas, films, which with better storylines and understanding, they seem to remain in the public memory. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you. So we have more questions coming in. Could you recommend things that we can read and watch online of artists who draw breaking the norms?
There are so many of them. It'd be nice if you start with Tex Avery, who is entrenched in, a name everybody respects in Hollywood. He's a Tex Avery and Chuck Jones from that school, and Paul Dredson, Raul Servais, a lot of them, even the Japanese filmmakers like Takahata, Miyazaki, Satoshi Kon, many other names. You just have to look at important names, and it'll be nice if you can read up also on contemporary animation. There are people like Ulo Pikov and, Estonian, I think, or Latvian, I'm not very sure, but Estonian, I think, who has been writing a lot about what animation is all about, besides being a communication device or commercial income generating device, but as an application into science and all kinds of stuff.
So you have Kripa Savant asking, I'm very interested in animation and game designing. Can you tell how time and space works in it? The game design is again interactive, almost on the verge of virtual reality, where the responsive machines, which is computing engines, game engines, are as we speak, they are getting more and more advanced with AI, artificial intelligence, and responsiveness in machine technology improving. So what is to be understood is it is devising a kind of reality far removed from us. So not much of research or what it does to us as human beings or what it can do to our future is not really deliberated, has not been deliberated upon so far. It is a great thing to involve in, to see how it works and what role it plays in society, or like the old school thoughts about what art does, or what an curated galleries does for the society, what animation cinema does, what movie making does. But what game does is something that has not been thought about much. There are great games, there are fabulous games, but and it's making tons of money, but it is not kind of theorized enough to say anything about it, other than say that it's very intriguing and what do you call it, addictive to but what it actually throws up in society, nobody knows. So that is kind of the state of gaming. But it's an interesting thing to get into, and because what the responsive machines or the reality engines that gaming does is being now applied to all kinds of other probabilities, like deep space travel, undersea travel, the pandemic research, how the viruses behave. This kind of technology is good for everyone, everything. So reality engines which generate responses is a good thing to get into.
I hope that answers. It's too complicated, but.
So we have another question here from Sampath RD. He says, it's my great pleasure to attend this session. Is virtual reality is the same as film or animation, or how is it different in the context of human perception?
Well, virtual reality by its own meaning is not real reality, but it's virtual reality. So that you need a device, either for you to wear it, or get inside a room or something and do projectors doing their job. But what virtual reality actually can transport you into a space which is not real. That is how it is. So the elementary stuff is you can navigate within that space. So what it means is you can make your own story. You can navigate the evidences or the objects that is placed before you. So in that sense, it has a lot of animation in it. It has a lot of objectives being thrown in front of you, and so therefore it makes you engaging. Engaging. But the best that I've seen is made for museums, where it can throw up the past. In the sense, a couple of people I know are working on Jahangir's Mughal period in Red Fort, where you actually look at augmented stuff and also virtual stuff, where you actually get immersed in a period. So that is virtual reality. That's the gamut of what virtual reality can do. The perception that human beings, like I said about gaming, it's too early to actually conclude anything. I mean, it's all kinds of work are coming up.
So now we have Gabriel asking another question, like how long do stop motion movies survive in the industry?
I mean, it depends on the kind of quality it has. I don't know if you have seen this National Film Board of Canada's Tootli Putli, that very strange, macabre film, but it is model animation. Of course, it is assisted by some computing, but otherwise it is stop motion. It's very, very strong, and it's. I don't think it is comparable to others. But you can also look at, Nick Park's work, which is the dog. What's his name? Nick
Wallace
Park.
and Gromit.
Yeah, Wallace and Gromit. So Wallace and Gromit, if you look at, I mean, there is nothing you can do about that guy. I mean, it's incredible, and I'm sure that it's going to last till either the pandemic finishes off, or we finish ourselves some other ingenious way, because it's going to stay. I mean, Wallace and Gromit, if you look at it, you know that stop motion has a great future.
Okay. So we have another question from Arjun. He asks, what do you think of the future medium of design? As the technology getting advanced, is there a role for human?
I mean, technology getting far away, and computers writing poetry and all is very, very far away. So as long as that is there, we still have a chance. Now, I don't think that is going to impact upon design, or the inherent quality of human beings to make mistakes is very, very difficult to copy. We make a lot of mistakes, and computers, they are designed to not make mistakes. So there is a fundamental difference there. Much of our animation we love because, it's so different from the real. And also, of course, everybody knows this, that the value of disconnect is something that has been around in the circles for a long time. You know, the more realistic you make your 3D animation, the further away from reality it becomes. So it is always kept at a minimum so that, you know, there are some mistakes, some things that are not so real, so that you understand that it's a piece of art and, you know, you can. But if you make it a very, 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 very real kind of situation, you'll reject it. It's called the valley of disconnect. You will throw it away. It's the same that, you know, if you make a model, you know, mannequin or something which is so real that, I mean, then you'll have a fright of your life and you'll run off. I mean, it's not so bright.
So we'll wind up our discussion with one more question, and it says, so what's your opinion on the current situation of the animation industry in India? Will we be forced to look for career opportunities outside India?
This is a long answer going to be. See, the thing with Indian animation is that, you know, we kind of got trapped in trying to do, I mean, a lot of opportunity went when we stuck to mythological kind of films in the early 90s and the early 2000s. And we lost that opportunity in actually figuring out contemporary Indian literature, which all the other countries were, you know, looking at their own literature, their own kind of thing. And they made animation and they sold it in their own country, and then it was exported. But we kind of became slow. But I think things are opening up with Geetanjali's film being screened in Netflix, and so many other films are on the anvil. You know, it is going to happen. I think animation industry is going to pep up. Much depends on the youth. I mean, the young people who understand, you know, a little more sensible in terms of picking up choosing subjects. You know, you can see in live action cinema also the kind of people, the kind of young people making fantastic films. Now is a very great sign. So it is hopeful that these things do happen in animation as well. The problem with you know, the animation industry as such is that we only have animators, whereas the film industry has writers, they have poets, they have musicians, they have, you know, stuntmen, they have cameramen, it's a collaborative. And when it comes to animation, we are some lunatics sitting there and just animating. I mean, we think of music after the animations, and we don't think of it as a cohesive kind of collaborative that we should be engaging in. So I think young people have understood this, and they will gang up together. Like in film schools, they gang up together. The editor, the cameraman, they all set up together and start making films. That's how it works the world over. So I think things are going to open up. But this pandemic has kind of twisted everything out of shape. But, you know, maybe the theater system has gone down the drain. Maybe it's some other kind of exhibiting system, which is, of course, in sight, like Netflix or all of that, OTT stuff. Maybe that works. And probably it works because the world, people are also realizing that you don't have to travel. You know, I have stopped traveling for a year. I used to be traveling all over the country, and I've stopped. Yet my work continues. You know, it's not so much, but yet, you know, you have an opportunity to do this. And for young people, it is, you know, I know students in my earlier place collaborating with students in Spain and doing a project together. So that's possible now. Even with this pandemic nonsense going on, it is possible. So I think the choices and the promises are great.
Okay. So thank you so much, sir. I think it's time to wind up our webinar. We have exceeded our scheduled time by about 15 minutes, but thank you. It was a very vibrant session. So many questions were asked, and we had very informative and inspiring answers. So thank you so much to to Professor Prakash Moorthy, our academic chairman, for having this wonderful webinar. I also thank all the participants who made this a very wonderful session. I also thank the management of St. Joseph's College of Communication who made this actually possible. Thank you, everyone. See you again with more webinars. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, all of you. We must talk.
Thank you.